Hot? Yes, it's hot. I just see in the comments that someone said, why am I picking the heat of the day? Well, this is a good thing to do in the heat of the day, hide under the boat and where I can't really get any other work done. Plus, from what I understand, it's not a bad time to do this. I'm reading the comments here. I'm just wondering if I am live. Anyone out there? I'm wondering if I'm broadcasting, actually, because no one on here has let me know I'm live. We can see and hear you. Excellent. Excellent. Well, hello and welcome to the Travels with Geordie haul out live stream. You can see I am hiding underneath the boat because this is about the only place, as I said, anywhere right now that you can stay reasonably cool. It is the peak of the day. It is the absolute worst time to do anything other than sit under the boat and chat with all of you for a little bit. So let me have a quick look at the, oh my gosh, there's no way I can keep on. Thanks that I'm live. That's very good. Tons of people here already. That's really great. I'm glad to have you all here. I appreciate it. I got up early this morning to do some caulking on the boat. I don't know if I tip you up, you can have a look at cotton hanging out the side of the boat there. You probably just got dizzy. Sorry about that. Because it's about the only thing I can do completely in the shade with limited physical exertion. Working in the boat is impossible because the wheelhouse is all glass and it just gets hotter than Hades in there. So yes, it's been a bit tough finding things to do and scheduling the right sorts of things to do. So let me have a quick look at comments and see if there's any questions to answer right off the bat. It says I'm a bit laggy, intolerably laggy, because I'm using the local Wi-Fi here, and if it's intolerable, I'll put it on my phone's data. So just let me know. A little bit of lag. Hello SVC Quest. Hello Andy Payne from Virginia. Hello Mike and Leslie Pomponi, South Carolina. Hello. Oh, this is moving fast now. William Conway. Your vlogs lack nothing. It's great. George Emery in Squim. Wow, just across. Renegade Joe. Hey, how are you, Nick? Yeah, speak to the manager about all the heat. Matthew says, get a big umbrella. I have a big umbrella. In fact, it's 38 feet long. Do we need to crowdsource an AC unit for Geordie, says Digamer. No, hopefully I'll never have to worry about that because once you're at sea, it should be nice and cool. I mean, I'm 100 yards from the ocean here, but there is no sea breeze. There's a little bit. Anyway, it's not so bad. All good. Lag is okay. Excellent. How are you, Jeffrey Williams? You're good. All good. Angel Olivas says hello from Mexico. George Sterling from Sickaroos. William Conway also already picked it up. Almost like you're stuttering. Okay. Well, again, if I need to switch to a faster connection, let me know. Anyway, oh my gosh, someone sent 1 million pictures of something, a whole bunch of apes. All right, I guess that's hot. Live Stern, from Antwerp. Excellent. There's no way I keep up with this. I apologize for that. So, okay, I was asked in advance about a few questions, and I thought I'd start with a question right off the bat. So I'm going to take you off the tripod and take you for a little walk. Now, of course, I can read comments while I'm in the boat. And I'm sure you're all a little curious about how I'm going to paint the boat. Well, I'm not sure you're curious at all. Maybe you don't care. Let's stand back a little bit so we can see the whole boat. But it does mean getting in the sun. Whew, it's hot out here. Okay, so you can see the boat is now a patchwork of various, I can't see anything because all I have is glare. A patchwork of various patches and fairing and bungs and all kinds of stuff. So the plan is, first off, to get it to the point where I can put the boot stripe back on. And that'll mean I can then work from there up. My technique for putting the boot stripe on is just paint just a big white, a big black stripe here. And I know exactly where it is because I have datums to mark down. And then once that's dry, I tape it with 2.5 inch pieces of tape. And so it's automatically easy 3 inches. And so it's already masked from above and below. So I just leave that on and then I paint the top side and then I paint the bottom. Okay, so But before I can do that, I have to sand out all the bungs. And if we come back here, you can see there are tons of bungs in the boat now already, plus some filler and some other things going on. And I've had to caulk, and now you can see I've paid just this morning with $2.91, yes, down to below the water line, so that tomorrow when this is dry enough, I can sand that off, because $2.91 is sandable. Am I pitching it enough? So I can get to the point where I can put some primer on anywhere that there's bare wood, or anywhere where I have sanded $2.91, because it's kind of a rubbery texture, and I like to put primer over it before I move on. So this will all be primed, and then I'm going to paint, yes, only one coat of a product. Sorry, the primer I'm going to use is Pettit's Easy Prime, and apparently it's a good primer and it's fun. I've used it several times and it's fine. And I just have to get back in the shade here for a sec, folks. And then I will paint with Pettit's Easy Epoxy. And if you're familiar with it, if you're not familiar with it, it's not actually a product. It's a polyurethane, and I really like polyurethane paints. And then the question went on to say, well, are you going to roll and tip, or just roll, or spray, or spray? I'm just going to roll. The first time I used that paint, the first haul out I ever did was this boat, and I rolled and tipped in the heat. It was miserable. It's a heck of a lot of work. This paint is very thick, and its magic only works if it's unthinned. The next time we use it on Matt Zephyrus' boat, Lady Zephyrus, MV Zephyrus, we just rolled. And if you're really careful and move quickly so that you're not letting it dry while you're still touching it, it self-levels remarkably well. And in this extreme heat, I think if there's going to be any residual brush roller marks, I'd rather they were the uniform roller marks rather than brush marks starting to thicken up anyway. So that's what I'm going to do. So let me go back to see if there's any new questions, and that's the best answer for that. Here we go. So I'm just going to pick up roughly where it is now to see if there's any actual questions. I hope it floats end, says Dwayne. I hope so too. More on that in a little bit. Dre will float better than ever. No worries until the planks lighten up. Wait, let me just show you something. MV Geordie has two bilge pumps, two 900-gallon something or other, basically one and then a backup if the one fails. But now I have a 4,000 gallon per minute, 2-inch output bilge pump. I hope the only time I ever need that is to cope with her swelling up when I launch, because that is a serious pump. It was very expensive, but that's cool. Actually, it was cheaper than I thought it would be. Because even though I know the boat will swell up, I have a limited window of opportunity for that to happen. I'll be hanging in the slings here in a boatyard where they need to use the travel lift to do other things. They like me here, they're kind to me, and they will give me as much of their time as possible, but eventually they're gonna have to say, Peter, either drive away or we'll haul you out again, that would really not be good. And if the pumps haven't stopped relatively comfortably, I'm not driving away. So we'll see how all that goes. Okay, as soon as I moved the camera, the stream collapsed. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Are we back online now? Let's see. I'm not sure. The lag is getting worse. Okay, I'm gonna take a minute. Okay now, folks, I have just switched to LTE off my phone, and hopefully this will cure the lag effect. Back online, you're fine now. 5 out of 5 for me. Okay, so that's good. Excellent. Okay, so what the heck? That's good. Did you miss the whole thing about the painting? That's not fair. Anyway, reload to restart. Better. So far, so good. Much better. That works. Maybe I have a slow, you're fine, perfect. Okay, anyway, I'm sure I missed a million questions that were further up. Let me have a quick look at what's going on now. 4,000 gallon per minute pump is as large as your boat. Yes. Imagine lining up 4,000 1-gallon cans of paint. 4,000 in a row. That's how much, that's a lot. Anyway, so I'm pretty excited about that. when might you attempt the Great Loop in the Eastern USA and Canada? That's Paul asks, and that's a very good question. That's technically the second set of ambitious cruising I'm going to do. First would be here in the Pacific Northwest, and I don't know how much longer I'll be here. It's very convenient to be able, I mean, great supplies here, great wood, I have a truck. I mean, it's quite convenient to do any of the heavy work that I'm still doing to the boat. So I suspect another year, maybe 2, and then straight to the Great Loop. So a couple years. Stay hydrated. I had a big glass of water just before I started this, but I didn't want to be in a situation where I had to leave you for a minute to run to the head. What else we got going on here? Terrible reception when you sitting, but perfect reception towards the front. I'm going to assume that that is solved. Oh, someone has gifted me. Peter Nisbet, thank you ever so much. The last few weeks of videos have been fantastic to watch. Lovely to see all your work coming together. Thank you for making all the videos. Thank you ever so much. I appreciate that. Let's see what we have in the way of other questions coming on here. My iPad is telling me I have to keep it in the cool. It's gone into dim mode. Yeah, it's that hot here. Okay, I'm going to reboot this and hope it can stay alive. I realize this is not the most organized live stream we've ever done. I apologize for that. Okay, so we're back. Does the other wooden boat have the same problems with big gaps like yours? Yes and no. Lloyd's boat, the other wooden boat that's right here, had some big gaps, and the shipwright who was working on it splined them. Did a lovely job. Scott, I think you've all met him. So he splined those gaps and dealt with that quite successfully. Plus, some of the big gaps were around the planks that he replaced. So by replacing a plank, you solve 2 gaps, 2 planks were the problem. So the boat is perfect over there. It's fantastic. Digamer, thank you very much for a cold one on you. I appreciate that. That's very kind. Let's see. Mike Cochran's asking, why do your patrons get special preference when you started off with likes? Special preference when I started off with likes. I'm not quite sure I understand that question, but I can answer this. My patrons don't actually get special preference in any way or form, other than they don't. They get nothing. They either get a T-shirt or a few things. But in terms of participation here, there is no special favors. So I hope, Mick, that answers your question. Roy asked, try using some 15% Penetrol in the paint. Will look sprayed. I've heard that before, and I'm going to do some reading on it. I've heard about that. Paul asks, will you be coming back to the UK, buddy? Absolutely. Directly after the Great Loop cruise, I will have the boat shipped to the UK. Although I'll probably be there in advance of that, doing some road tripping in the Land Rover, which I'm pretty excited about. How long does the wood need to dry before painting before the water line? That's an excellent question, and it's the conundrum of this situation. I need to keep the boat wet so that it doesn't dry out, but I need the boat to be dry to paint it, or to work on it, or even get a lot of the carpentry done. So I've had to turn off my soaker hoses around the chines so that I could caulk the boat and pay it. So now I only have water sitting in the bottom of the bilge, and it's doing a great job. But in this weather, it's unbelievable how fast things are drying out. So it's just a juggle trying to, I mean, it's just a bad time of year to all about. That's the bottom line. Bad idea. It's what I had to do. A little bit further along. You can't be a proper boater with a clean haircut. It's not allowed in maritime law. Did you notice I trimmed my beard? I did. I could do with a haircut. It might be a little bit cooler. Paint at night. Absolutely. I will be painting not at night, but very, very early in the morning. So I'll probably start painting around 4, believe it or not. There's plenty of light to do that. JW asks, is Lady Zephyrus nervous about your findings with the butt block dissolving? No, not at all, because we refastened all the butt blocks MV Zephyrus, so I have no concerns at all. Would be fine. By my records, you're killing it, man. Don't ever stop the intros. Okay, thank you very much. Matt asks, looking good. Also loving Edward Monk's less famous masterpiece. I don't quite know what that is. Anyway, okay, Ben asked, when you have the boat shipped to the UK, how will you keep the hull from drying out? Good question. My plan had been to fill it's going to be deck cargo, as far as I know. And I planned to fill some large jerry cans probably with brine, salt water, and run, I'm gonna leave those soak hoses in forever now, and run a bilge pump effectively out of the bilge and continue to circulate that off the 12-volt batteries, off the solar. Of course, if I leave a system running that they put on deck of a ship and then something goes really weird, the crew might not be too happy about that. Although it looks like I may be able to travel as a passenger on the same ship if everything goes well. So who knows? So, but that is a concern, of course. Life afloat, any deck issues requiring repair now that your hull is sound? Yes, yes, it's a wooden boat. The decks are actually quite good, except they were fiberglass, regular mesh fabric, not mesh, but like, I don't know what you call it. Not matte, like the simple fiberglass. And you're getting quite a few cracks where the wood, well, familiar that the, let's go around the other side of the boat so that we're not, oh, it's hot over here. Okay, so the deck's not cabin top, really not bad at all. I can't see anything. The aft, call it that, completely rebuilt, and that might be this fall, or how I'll do it, but that is the plan. So the answer is yes. Yowza, that's a bit much. This isn't my regular mount. There we go. Haha. Okay. Lagging out. Lost the stream. So it sounds like when I walk around, you lose everything. Maybe I better not do that anymore. Well, let's see. Big time lagging now. Bad Wi-Fi, I'm afraid. Might be the phone's overheating. Going lagging again. Let's see if we've caught up. We've caught up. Yeah, I'm back. Okay. It looks like I can't walk around. That seems to be the problem. I think I'll probably just not get up again. Next question. Will you eventually, once you're back at the marina, seems like she'll be ready to cruise. Well, she won't really be ready for cruising, and I'm not going back to the marina. I'm literally leaving here and going straight cruising up to Desolation Sound. Desolation Sound is a group of islands and inlets partway up Vancouver Island, between Vancouver Island and the mainland of British Columbia, and it's just a lovely spot. If you've been watching the show for a while, you've seen I've been there before. There's tons to do. By the time I leave here, to be fair, I hope the Ministry of Transportation isn't listening. I won't have running lights yet. I won't have an anchor light. I'll have very limited wiring, other than just lighting. The fuel system will be brand new and complete. I don't know. I hope so. Anchor gear seems to be fine. Everything's fine with that. So every night, every day, I'm going to be continuing to work on the boat to get those systems running. And it shouldn't take long to have that kind of stuff back up and running. Someone says the lag was beautiful. I don't know how that's possible to have a beautiful lag. Anyway. Patrick Gold says, I rented a gas-powered pump for putting a boat back in the water. I only need to do it for 4 hours, but I'm glad I had it. I've considered that, but I'm hoping the investment in this pump is a good idea, and it'll go again. you had some rudder post rot, as I recall, problems with the keel astern. Are you going to look at that the next haul out? Well, you've been watching for a while, am keen. Yes, there was some delignification in around the, not actually the rudder post, the bolts that come up from the skeg. And I believe they were the result of electrolysis delignification, in other words, stray electricity. So I think I've arrested it. At the time, I dug out all the punky stuff and soaked it with CPES, clear penetrating epoxy sealant, and I believe I've dealt with it. Although I haven't, well, I have seen it actually, but I haven't really checked into it. At a subsequent haul out, when I do the frames in the cockpit, underneath the cockpit, and I redo my main tanks and all that, I'll have a much closer look at that down there. Steve Reynolds, stay still and you'll be fine. That actually suits me because it's reasonable under here. These are moving so fast I can hardly. Have you finished the motor mounts? Yes, yeah, pretty much. They're ready to go back in. And although if you mean the engine beds used to be bolted down to the old floors, which weren't attached to anything, basically. So anyway, all the lineup and everything, I'm gonna have to realign the engine, which is a little annoying because the engine beds now they're not indexed to anything because all the bolt holes in the old floors are all gone. So that'll be a bit of a go. Chad Matthews, but you have NMEA 2000. Yes, I do. I have one chunk of NMEA 2000. In fact, right here is the starter kit, which is a very short wire with 2 ports on it. Basically, my depth sounder over there is NME 2000, and the gauge I have for it is NME 2000. So I'm quite excited, well, to play with that a little bit. Dylan asks, will the propeller be checked now that you have changed the engine? Very good question. For starters, it needs to be cleaned. The propeller expert here at the yard has come by and given it his ding ring blessing of approval, so it doesn't seem to have lost its zinc. It's not pink, in other words. It's a very high quality, relatively new 4-bladed propeller. I believe the pitch is perfect, pitch perfect, for the gearing and the engine, although only the sea trial will tell. And because I'll be doing another haul out relatively soon, if the propeller needs to be slightly repitched, if it's only slight, it can be repitched. In other words, they bend it a little bit. If it needs a significantly different propeller, which I think is very unlikely, they have a vast assortment here, or somewhere. I will have to get a new propeller. Hi Peter, Becca Bob, how are you? Good to see you again. Will you provide an expense breakdown for this work? I don't even know. I suppose at some point I've resisted doing all those what it costs to live aboard or what it costs to refit a boat, largely because I don't keep very accurate records. I could. I mean, if I look at my bank statement, I go, whoo. To be fair, I suppose I should. If there's interest, maybe I'll ask if there's a poll at some point and see if people want to know, like, hey, what's it cost to refit a wooden boat in 2021? A lot, an awful lot. But anyway, I'll look into that. What do we got here? Paul Martin says, tape torch to the mast, yes, for an anchor light. Yeah. Well, my first 2 nights, I won't need it, so I should be okay. Burke, cheers from Canton, Ohio. Keep up the good work. Stay cool. Thanks so much. Maybe tying oil light navigation. It's also pretty original to your boat. You know, it's interesting. When I was a kid sailing in Montreal, we had a tiny little, it was called a Siren. It was a 17-foot sailboat made by Van de Stad and McGruer in Barrie Sound, Ontario, for those of you who might know. Anyway, it was my family's first, well, it wasn't our first by a long shot, but first new boat. And my father was such a believer in low tech, even though he was an electronics engineer. We had an old railway oil lantern that we would light and haul to the top of the mast every night. And I always imagine if that thing just somehow let go, or I don't know, it would crash down onto the cabin in a pile of burning oil. Anyway, never did. What do we got here? Sorry, we've lost track. John Templeton, fantastic work on the bilge, ribs, and frames. Thanks so much. Hey Peter, who are your fave boating? or boat building YouTubers besides Leo? It's too obvious. Everyone loves him. That's a really good question. I watch less YouTube than you might imagine, at least lately. Of course, Leo. Of course, Acorn to Arabella. I have a soft spot for sailing magic carpet. I love them cruising up through Europe because that's what I'd like to do. It's pretty neat that now they're going to be a DIY show, and they're going to be refitting that boat down very near Leo, actually. So I'm kind of excited how that's going to go. You know, who can't watch ship happens? I mean, what on earth is going to happen with that boat? That's pretty cool. There's a local here in Victoria boat builder, master craftsman. He's also a banjo player. Nomad Boat Building. Anyway, you'd find him if you look up that. He recently made a little mahogany, tiny little sailboat, fast. I love everything he does. Anyway, that's probably it. Maybe I should put a list together sometime. St. Brock, worn shoes in the background looks a bit rough. Are you gonna do something about them? Oh, the worm shoe. The worm shoe's a mess. It's a mess. Yes, I'm gonna replace the worm shoe soon. How do you do it? When you think about it, the boat is sitting on blocks, right? And it's sitting on the worm shoe on the blocks. So I've got to come up with some scheme of doing it in sections, having them lift the boat, put it back down in a different place. And then I'd have a kind of a patchwork of a worm shoe. Then I had this idea I might do it in the water. I'll go diving on it and I'll pull it all off somehow. And then I'll float another one underneath and let it float up against it, that's obvious. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but yes, it definitely needs work. JS Media, expense breakdown. Gosh, isn't there enough for one guy to just get the work done? Well, yes, at least for now. At this point, I am just running like a chicken with my head cut off. If I get into something interesting, we can do that. I have to do a refresh because this has lost everything all of a sudden. I may be 1,000 questions behind. I'm not sure. Sorry. I'm going to have to turn this off to try and get this to work. Okay. The boat policy says easy. It's a boat and therefore a hole in the water, and which one throws money? Yes, that's very, very true. Policy says, but often worth it. You are awesome, Mr. Grickle. Love your videos. Thank you. The Digital Mermaid. He didn't trust technology because he was an electrical engineer. Fair enough. Susan Meldal. Hi, Susan. How are you? Cheers, Peter from Port Angeles. Yes, stay safe and cool. Inventory is looking great. I didn't know you were in Port Angeles. You're so close. Mike and Leslie love sailing magic carpet too. She's from Vancouver actually, which is kind of neat. She had a little sailboat before she met Aladino, and if you watch way back. Robert Landia, Hawaii Captain, how are you, Robert? Ben asked, am I familiar with SV Seeker? Yes, I am actually. I don't watch it religiously. I don't really know why. I think it's an incredible project, especially to take on with, relatively little naval engineering know-how. It is definitely the boat the internet built, no doubt about it. I am so curious to see it move and get launched, so I'll be paying more attention to that as that move on. We actually chatted a while ago. It was nice to have a chat with him. Pilsner or Guinness? Oh, come on. Guinness, all the way. In fact, until I came to the West Coast and there was better craft beer out here. I'm not knocking East Coast craft beer, really, I'm not. Guinness was my beverage for decades. Robert says, Peter, Bob Gibson here in Southport, North Carolina. Just wanted to tell you that I have totally enjoyed watching your work. Fantastic job. Thanks ever so much. Now, you asked about another sailing channel. Robert Barnes. Okay, he's not making boats. Look him up. This is a British fellow who cruises Europe, France and England in a dinghy. A big dinghy, but a dinghy. And just the way he talks and the way he presents that lifestyle is just phenomenal. I'm addicted to the stuff he does. And I'm also, because I'm a minimalist, I consider this minimalist, he lives in a dinghy. Well, he lives in a big house because he's an architect and he's quite comfortable, I think. But when he's cruising, he's sleeping in a dinghy. Check him out. Erica, did you ever finish the cold cherry? Yeah, I drank it, all right. John Guinness as well. Bob, afternoon, Peter. How are you, Bob? This is jumping around so much. Paul Steindorf, is Victoria, BC a center for antique wooden boats? I would say it's pretty good. There are several wooden boat shops here. Really significant in Brentwood Bay, which is a little village halfway between here and Victoria. That's Abernathy and Godang. If you look them up and you look at their photo section, that's serious wood boat stuff. They work for the finest of the wooden boats. You know, Port Townsend is sort of the Pacific wooden boat capital, whereas Mystic, Connecticut, Mystic Seaport, Connecticut? Is it Connecticut? Anyway, I don't know my states as well as I should, I apologize. It's sort of the East Coast capital of wooden boats. Victoria definitely has its share of wooden boats. More and more are turning up all the time. I just heard from Lady Zephyrus over the phone, and another classic sedan Monk has pulled into the neighborhood. Not our marina, but the one right next door. So yeah, I think wooden boats are a big thing here. There's plenty around, no doubt about it. Pete Martin, have you been seen sailing Yabba? Some serious planning going on. Yes, I've seen sailing Yabba. Again, what an ambitious project. I don't follow them regularly, but it's lots going on. William Conway, hi Peter, have you gone to see Leo yet in Port Charles? Is he in Port Charles? I thought he was in Scrim. Has he already moved? Anyway, I haven't gone to see Leo. I've talked to him several times. I have a standing invitation, which is very generous of him, but the borders are closed, so it's not possible to go to the United States just yet, but I'll go see him as soon as I can. I'm really hoping to get down to the Port Townsend Wooden Boat Festival this fall, if the borders are open, at which point I'll definitely go see Leo. In Port Charles, and do you know something I don't know? Has he already moved? Mickey asks, a little off topic, but what's the difference between a Monk and a Chris-Craft of similar design and age? Well, that is a very loaded question. I'll do the tiny version of it. Early on, not as much difference as you might think. Most classic wooden boats, sort of pre-war and at the early, were built relatively the same. Carvel, steam bent, similar style. Everyone was doing relatively similar stuff. Don't let me tread on people who have an authority on this topic, but they sort of diverged a little bit. Chris-Craft was a company. They designed and built their own boats. Monk was a designer. He didn't build any boats. Basically, all these boats were built bespoke or custom by various yards. So the owners, from what I understand, the owners would buy the plans and then find a yard to do it. Different versions of that. Chris-Craft then, at a certain point, and I don't know where it is, and people like my buddy Maurizio and others will know this stuff really well, then became a factory. And I think some people believe that was sort of a transition for Chris-Craft, and boats were made, you know, on an assembly line more so, and also became fast boats. Twin V8s were the norm, whereas Monks were always displacement cruisers and always meant for efficient, slow cruising. So for lots of reasons, I respect all wooden boats, but I much prefer the Monks. Susan asks again, hop, skip, and jump on the coho when she starts running. We miss her. We'll come by for a beer and toast you. Yes, I miss the coho terribly. The fact that well, I'm not in Victoria, I'm in Sydney, but I love to watch her come by. She comes by right in front of my slip, well, a couple hundred yards away. I love the coho. The fact that it's been running nonstop since 1959, and take note, BC Ferries, you guys keep building new ones all the time. I just think it's a great boat, and I love Port Angeles. There's actually a pretty neat little pizzeria I know up the hill and around, and some nights there's a guy playing piano in there. Maybe you know the place. Monks are custom, Chris-Crafts are cookie cutter. Okay, I didn't say it. Russell, he dug out the foam on the lightship as well. Russell says he dug out the foam on the lightship as well, Peter. I'm not quite sure I know what that means. I'm sorry. Rob, if the border opens, are you coming to the Wooden Boat Festival this year? Yeah, just mentioned that. I definitely will try to get down. Have you been to Mystic Seaport? I have not. I would love to go to Mystic Seaport, so I'm very much hoping on the Great American Loop I have a chance to stop by there. Dieter, why do you use a very long exhaust weighted in the stern instead of going out the port side direct behind the muffler? Greetings from Hamburg. because it's the way it's done here. I don't know. The exhaust port was already, which end of the boat is the back? That way. The exhaust port on the back of the boat was already there. I had imagined I would just keep it the same way. If you know, MV Zephyrs has a side exhaust. It just seemed to be the way to go. It did mean an awful lot of exhaust hose, which maybe wasn't very economical, but it's done now. It was also all purchased and set up for the Perkins, a Perkins 4236, a significantly bigger engine than is currently in the boat, so it's way overbuilt. It means it's awfully quiet. Standing in the cockpit, you can't hear anything pretty much. Rob asks, when you first started to look at wooden boats to restore, was there any other boat you would have considered? Excellent question. No. I've always loved wooden boats my whole life. I lived in Lunenburg, well, I lived in Montreal, so it was Chris Crafts. And then I went to Nova Scotia, and it was mostly sailboats. So there's very, very few luxury motor cruisers in Nova Scotia. It's really not a thing, as much as it is here anyway. But again, I imagined Chris Crafts, but I just couldn't comprehend two big V8s. It's not, I'm not interested in that much energy. So I started to fall in love with English riverboats, very much like this, to tell you the truth. Old, wooden, beautiful displacement boats. If you're familiar with the Norfolk Broads, which is a series of flooded plains, wetlands, with rivers connecting them in the north-ish, mid-east of England. It's a series of canals, and I was introduced to it through a series of books by Arthur Ransom. Some of you will know the first book, Swallows and Amazons, but if you haven't read them all, get them from your library, read the series of books by Arthur Ransom, Swallows and Amazons. Two of the books chronicle times on the Norfolk Broads. Am I getting off topic just a bit? Anyway, I fell in love with those boats. Slow-moving, beautiful, mahogany, comfortable cruisers. But they didn't really exist in North America until I discovered Monk, or at least old boats on the Pacific Northwest. But it was a Monk I really wanted, and I knew about them before I got out here, and I started looking when I got here. So there's the short answer. Doug Smith, how was the water pressure creation working out? It's awesome. I never put the regulator in. I'm using a washdown pump for those who don't understand the question. My regular domestic water for the taps and the shower and everything, I was fed up using cheap water pumps that don't have enough pressure. So I bought a washdown pump, which is just a pump, and I used it as my domestic water pressure, 70 PSI. And I thought, and I also bought a regulator to bring it down to something reasonable so that I could have high pressure for certain kinds of washdown things or something complex with the water inlet, but never mind that. And then reasonable pressure for everything else. But I'm just running 70 PSI through the whole boat. Boy, the shower is awesome. Washing dishes, you put a bowl under the sink, the tap, and go, and it's done. It's a pressure washer. So far, it's excellent. The plumbing is all brand new PEX, so it can take it. So I don't know what it'll do in the long run. It's refreshing on its own. I don't know what's going on here. Oh, John Morgan, thank you ever so much for the gift. Peter, loving the channel. Keep up the great work. Have a cold pint of Guinness on me. I certainly will. Thank you very, very much. St. Brooke, MP Geordie has that utilitarian look, just like Orca from Jaws, and I just love her. Don't you, Peter? Well, I do love her. But I'm not quite sure it has the same utilitarian look of Orca from Jaws, which truthfully is a fish boat. Whereas this is I'm going to say the Y word, but it's a motor cruiser. I won't say yacht. But it definitely is from the same era. It has the same sort of curves and feel to it. I'd like to think it's a little more graceful or classy, but anyway, it's, who knows. Tom Davies says, we didn't mean to go to sea. Great book, wasn't it? Bruce says, enjoy your masterful carpentry. Greetings from Huntington Beach, California. Thank you. Whoops, jumping things here. St. Brooke, shape characteristics looks a bit similar too. Yes. Amkeen, very shallow draft in the Broads. Yes, very shallow water drafts and very shallow air draft. The bridge at Potterheim, I hope I pronounced that correctly. I mean, basically you can get a kayak under, so this boat won't be on much of the Broads. When I was 12, my family went to England, and I was privileged enough that my father, who also read all the books about from Arthur Ransom, we went up and we rented a little runabout on the a little wooden 2-cockpit inboard diesel runabout, and ran from Horning up to through. It was absolutely fantastic. Coup Club and the Big Six are the Broads ones. Yes, I have a Sheridan 1933 Woods Delight Broads boat. Lovely, 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 lovely. I've always loved the broom boats. Harry Dwyer, dig out the foam in front of the lightship, a massive job of a lightship. I apologize, I'm still not quite sure I understand what that is. Do you watch Tips from a Shipwright? Lou is very knowledgeable master craftsman and an authority on all things wooden boat. His current project is building an orca replica from the movie Jaws. That's very interesting. Very interesting. Yes, I do watch him. In fact, he was the first internet channel that I sort of found talking about wooden boats. And of course, he was an inspiration for using plastic for frames. I'm glad to see he's back because he had a bit of a hiatus. Interesting that he's building a replica of orca, because I think there's another project out there restoring maybe the original orca, or anyway, I shouldn't say too much. Russell, that foam dig episode was amazing. Okay, I'm gonna have to figure this out. This foam digging, whatever it is. In terms of what you want to reach on the boat, what percentage of reach of the final goal are going back in the water? Of this haul out, I'm really in the end game. I'm getting close. I have 7 days, 6 days, 7 days, 8 days. And I'm feeling pretty good. The structure's basically done. I have a couple more butt blocks to do, but the easy ones. The top sides are under control. So much, the refastening's basically done. I want to put a few more screws in down here. I need to fasten the floors in, but that's half a day's job at most. So I'm feeling actually pretty good of the wall of or the bulkhead of productivity. So I would say I'm really in the final third, if not quarter. So I'm feeling pretty good. Dennis asks, how many monk boats do you know of? Oh, dozens. In the years that the wooden boat festivals, both Victoria and Vancouver and Port Townsend and many smaller ones here in British Columbia, dozens of monks would be there, and I know of dozens more that don't attend the shows. I also sadly know of half a dozen or more that have succumbed to the elements. Anyway, they're gone now, just since I've got here. Some of them were quite pretty. So, you know, there's not that many left, but there's enough around that if you're interested, come and get one and look after it. Tuffy Hill, what is the drip system running as you speak behind you now? Boat looks very well sealed. Well, if you can, I've actually turned it off so it wouldn't be too noisy. Basically, I'm flooding the bilge from the cockpit, so it comes right through the whole boat. And this tape is actually working marvelously at keeping it in. Plus, the boat is tightening up. I'm very, very happy with the way the planks are tightening up. So I'm on the whole, at least those big scary gaps are pretty much under control. But as soon as I finish caulking and paying the hard shine, I'll go back to my drip irrigation system. That is the drip hoses all through the sides of the boat. This has decided to chug off all over again here. Here we go, we're back. Scooter 21, keep at it, Peter. You've got skills, spares, knowledge to share, and humble, curious continents. A rare, entertaining bird indeed. Well, thank you very much. That's very, very kind. Okay. Tuco Ken. I'm allowed to call you by your name anyway. Tuco Ken, who I know very well. Come on, Pete. IPA is best. Yes, it is, pretty much. Goodness, come on. Please, Wayne Pete, please test new pump. GPM should be gallons per minute, should be gallons per hour. It is gallons per hour, didn't it? I didn't say it was per minute. Yeah, gallons per hour. Did I say minute? that would 4,000 gallons a minute. Can you imagine that? Mr. Classic, my first passage through Deception Pass was on a monk. Wonderful, wonderful. Graham, you know the history of monk on Wikipedia. I made it. Well, cool. That's really neat. I'll have to have another look at that. Dave Vaughn, sorry, late to the party. Party carries on now that you're here. Jerry, is weight an issue when adding bigger fuel tanks and all that additional structure and such? It would be ignorant to just say no, but no. The engine is significantly, like a third of the weight of the engine that was in here 2 engines ago. All the new wood I put in the boat weighs tops a couple hundred pounds. You know, that's a couple of cases of beer. So that's not significant. And a lot of it replaced wood that was very, very heavy because it was waterlogged, although this will eventually get waterlogged too. The fuel tanks, excuse me, are big. Fully laden, they'll be about 650 pounds each, but I don't have to keep them full. The batteries are big. They're 80 pounds a piece, and there's 8 of them. As long as I think I have the structure underneath it, and this whole refit is about keeping the engine, the tanks, the batteries secure. I'd hate to be in a pounding sea, come down, and have all that weight give this poor bottom a hard time. So in that sense, the rest of my life is relatively lightweight. Well, I guess it's not. It's a lot of tools, but I don't own anything other than the boat, the truck, and tools. About 6 shirts and 4 pairs of pants. So, you know, I don't have much else that's heavy aboard. Water tanking is going to be kept to a minimum because eventually I'm going to have a water maker, because I believe it's brilliant. Why would you carry around heavy water when you can make it? Holding tank will have to be relatively copious because cruising in the Pacific Northwest is getting more and more difficult to dispose of raw sewage. So that's got to be pretty good. We'll just let this plane fly over. Of course, in Sydney, we are just across from the airport. Anyway, probably not too big a while. Okay, sorry. Tuco Cans just said, Slow Rover, it's been a while. Well, these are both good friends of mine, so I imagine... There you go, Slow Rover. Yes, Todd's all the way. Absolutely. JJ, thank you, Peter. Because you watched every episode, I have started working with tools again. You're a phenomenal inspiration, the end of a great mentor. Well, thank you very much. I'm grateful for that. Actually, it's a bit of a goal for me to get people working with their hands again and doing things and making things, and especially with your children or grandchildren. Teach them how to make things. Drill holes, hammer pegs. Paul, you have drill holes. You have drilled a lot of holes in the planks and ribs. When will you have to replank? The boat will get a new garboard sometime in the next few years, decade. I don't know. I'm not thrilled with it. I think it's fine, but you know, it would be the next plank to replace. The 2 planks at the chine, I think are very good, and now they're fully refastened, and I think they're probably fine, with the exception of the upper one is red cedar, and I think I showed you some punky spots that I filled with filler, yes, which I'd like to replace, and I'd like to replace it with yellow cedar, because really they should have transitioned to red cedar 1 more plank up. So, and that's a relatively easy plank to do. The garboard is not an easy plank to do, plus it is 9 inches wide. So 9-inch wide, yellow long, yellow cedar is tough to find. So, but no great panic on any of that. Chris asks, are you going to put a diesel generator in? Absolutely not. Well, technically I already have one. The Beta Marine comes with a 180 amp alternator, which is a lot of amps. But if just cruising can't keep up, I will be using solar. And no more engines for me, thank you. I'm waiting for the day that the batteries catch up and this boat can be electric, although that's not soon at all. Jada, how long do you expect the repairs you are making on this haul out to last? Well, I'd like to think that everything I repair now will last 50 years, a long time. The fasteners that were in it, well, they didn't last 50 years, did they? Well, they didn't last 70. A long time. I'm considering this boat should live forever. All wooden boats can be restored perpetually if you can find the skills, which are actually not, I shouldn't say. I don't have much skills, but proper shipwrights have lots. And you can find the wood. The wood being probably the far more difficult thing to find. At some point, perhaps, I would replace the center line. I don't know why. It's fine. I guess it's the big dread that's what you're going to have to do eventually. So anyway, I'd like to think it would go fine. Rick asks, dehumidifier or air conditioning, muggy in the tropics? Yes. I don't intend actually to be in the tropics. Perhaps the upper Caribbean islands if I get bold enough to jump across from Florida when I do the loop, but that's another whole topic. Tuco Can, of course, Pete, you can use my name. Oh, Todd. Good to see you, Todd. There you go. Stephen Townsend asks, are the new batteries lithium? No, they're not. And I'm going to do a whole episode about batteries. They are good old lead acid. My math and my belief is that we are still in the last cycle of bang for the buck being lead acid, especially in a boat where weight isn't much of a concern. If I was making a drone, well, it's lithium. In a car, it's kind of debatable, but in a boat, for what these batteries cost, the same amount of capacity in lithium would have been astronomical. There are other concerns with lithium. I'd like to think that when these batteries die, the two costs will have crossed over and lithium will emerge. These two curves, by the way, my first time I ever really thought about that way was wind turbines versus solar. When I was working on a solar project years ago, it became evident that solar would be much more cost effective than wind turbines in the very near future. And as far as I can tell, we passed that. Lots of people out there are going to object. Anyway, Francis, that's where I go boating on the Broads with my best dog. Yes, absolutely. Glad to hear it. Bob Adams, 6 shirts and 4 pairs of pants. Ha! Says Bob. You have more than that? Ship Happens is here. Hi! How are you? Hi, Pete. We love your videos. Your skills and approach are refreshing. Well, thanks so much. All the things you do, it's unbelievable. Just watched you in your shop the other day. That was, I didn't realize you had that fantastic shot. Okay, Ben goes, what will you be doing on your next hollow? It will be in a much cooler time of year. And if you think of the boat as being that long, we've just done the wheelhouse, which is by far the toughest part because the engine's in there and the tanks and the batteries and the engine beds and all that. After that is the aft cabin. After that is the cockpit. Forward of that is the forecastle or forward cabin. My next haul out, I will rebuild the forecastle and the cockpit. The reason being, that way I can still live in the aft cabin because I live aboard. And the cockpit is sort of pressing because I've never really finished the cockpit. There's no soul in it, and fresh water is going right into the bilge. I pour rainwater. I pour salt in there to keep up with it. But those of you who are annoyed with me for fresh water in my bilge, there's a lot of fresh water in my bilge. Well, except that I salt it with rock salt. So anyway, after I've rebuilt the forecastle structure, I can rebuild the forecastle interior and I can move into it and live in it while I do the aft cabin. And then the full structure will be done. So that's 2 more haul-outs, which is why I suspect I'll be here in the Pacific Northwest for 2 more years. Bob, how is the silicon bronze search going? Peter, I'm not looking for silicon bronze, actually. Well, that's not quite true. Spoiler, a gentleman from Vancouver saw that I was using galvanized lag bolts to hold down the flanges of my through hulls, seacocks, and promptly procured some and hopped on the ferry and came over here and gave them to me. It's amazing. Anyway, I'm going to feature that in an upcoming episode, so that was kind of fun. But other than that, I don't have any interest in silicon bronze in the boat because I don't believe in dissimilar metals. Digimura, LifePro are much safer than other lithium chemistries. Raw cells in bulk are already affordable from China, but still spendy as finished batteries. The price is coming down fast. I'm sure it is. I was very fortunate to get a really good price on these batteries. They're very high quality batteries. Again, I'll go on about it. It was one of those too good to give up offers, and it made it easy. Skireb, lithium is quite dangerous on a boat due to the meltdown factor. I've heard that. I don't have enough authority to comment on it, but it's in the back of my mind. Neil Scully, thank you ever so much for the gift. That's very kind. Mojo23, what is the plan for the Great Loop? When is the plan for the Great Loop? I mentioned a little bit earlier, probably 2 years. So in the spring of, this is 2021, 2022, 2023, almost immediately after haul out. I imagine I'll haul out spring of 2023, finish the boat, steam over to Vancouver, put her on a truck, Thunder Bay, Lake Superior, sorry about the stuttering, but it's hard to imagine. Anyway, and then down the Mississippi. SV, happy Mondays. Hiya from England. How are you in England? SV Sequest. Hey, ship happens. Love your videos. Commenting that they happen to be here. That's really great. Michael R with a whole bunch of stars. Do-it-yourself Life Pro 4 is cheaper than lead acid and twice as much storage. I've heard that. And, you know, there's a fella here on the coast. Many of you will watch, or at least have heard of Finding Simon. He's just a couple of islands up, doing some incredible work, a couple of boats. Big lithium guy. I've met him, we've chatted. When I see him, when I swing by in the next little while, we'll probably chat lithium again. I'll learn more about it. Bob go, that's me, Pete. Oh, hello, Bob. There's a lot of Bobs out there. Well, yes. Thanks, Bob, ever so much for the silicone bronze. But you'll get a proper plug in an upcoming episode. Oh, bro, the best thing I fitted to my boat was solar. Love, love, love it. I was sick of buying batteries. Yes, absolutely. Solar is the way to go. I'd have solar now, except other things were more important. Happily, I have this huge alternator, so cruising this summer, as long as I drive for a couple of hours every couple of days, I'll be fine. Howard Wood, Stu from Danger is good. Yes, I watch him sometimes too. Really, really good. Are we done? Well, I guess we could be done. I suppose it's time. I'll answer a few more questions. I guess we're just about there. I am so far behind, so I don't really know how far to pull this up. What are we at? We're just coming on 2 o'clock. Let's call it done at an hour, because that's about makes sense. DL Fendel. Oh, hey, congratulations on the shirt. Oh, and thanks for the gift and the beer, which will be the beer of the week next week. Without stabilizers, how do monk hulls compared with others with regard to rolling? Well, motor cruisers tend to roll. Displacement motor cruisers tend to roll. The hard chine, which I'm not going to move the camera, but you're all familiar with, is an effort to reduce that. And instead of being a round bottomed boat, it's a little with square chines, and I happen to know between MV Geordie and MV Zephyrus that MV Geordie rolls significantly less. It also is very smooth in the water. This hull design is brilliant. Structurally a little bit flaky, but in terms of a shape through the water is absolutely brilliant. So roll is a relative thing. It rolls. Does it roll too much for comfort? I don't know. So only riding in it in certain conditions would ever answer anyone's question about whether or not that was comfortable enough. Spy Maine 89, you need Captain Nemo beard. Well, I'll have to look up what a Captain Nemo beard looks like. Okay, we're getting close to wrapping it up because we're coming on 2 o'clock. So I'll just, this has gone blank again, and it's hotter than heck. It's gone dim again. I'm assuming I'm still online, am I? Yes, we're good. Are the batteries AGM? No, they're not. Yes, they are far safer and significantly more expensive. So I have procured brand new, really nice, I'll just swing you around and look at them, battery boxes, which will solve any leakage concerns. Because of course, yes, acid in the bilge of a wooden boat, very ugly. I did just buy an AGM battery for the dinghy though, because like MV Zephyrus, I have the same dinghy with a electric outboard and the same battery now. So I just love that. Max Dutton, Peter, your work ethic is superb. Hats off to you. Thanks so much for great entertainment. Thank you ever so much. Alistair Stewart, if money was not limited, what would be the dream repair? You know, I've been asked that before. I've been asked if money wasn't limited, would I just, like Leo or like other DIY shows, just haul it, put it in a shed, and finish it. Stem to stern, get it done, launch it, it's done, go cruising the rest of my life. I would not want to do that. Because I live aboard, I like to take the work in manageable chunks between enjoying living on the boat and enjoying working on the boat. To move ashore again, like say next to a shed or in the loft of a shed, the way Leo is, it's the lifestyle I wanted was living on a boat. it wasn't actually fixing a boat, although I love fixing things. So I guess the answer is just the capacity, both in terms of finances, resources, and my body lasting long enough to pretty much carry on exactly as I am. A balance between living aboard, living the life I like, seeing friends, working with people, and working on the boat.